Hello and good evening. As Formula One reclused into the winter break, as the season wound down and the motorsport world went into hibernation, the Indian racing community too took a break from its regularly scheduled programming, slowly putting the jigsaw pieces back together behind the scenes in anticipation of our biggest season yet. Originating in the sultry desert kingdom of Bahrain tonight and culminating where the bald eagle roams free at the Circuit of the Americas, with close to 100 sign-ups, 15 rounds, 4 tiers, 3 streams a weekend, 2 championships at stake, and 1 driver to stand unchallenged atop them all. This is IRC Season 10, hosted, organized, commentated, streamed, and coordinated, marketed, and broadcasted by the single biggest sim racing community that India has to offer. Good evening, my name is Eitzel, and joining me for the Tier-3 season opener this weekend in the commentary box is SimplyYT, and SSJassassin will be playing Puppet Master in the background with the cameras. We have an exciting evening of racing lined up for you here. But before that, let's quickly head into the Bahrain video. Our season opener, what better track to start off the calendar than Bahrain? A brilliant track which encourages racing, lots of overtaking zones, a track which puts emphasis on tire management with its extremely degrading surface. This should be a strategic battle for even the finest drivers. Let's head into the Hotlap.
Go for a hot lap of the Sakir circuit, rounding the final corner now, thundering down the main straight. DRS open as we cross the line and start the lap. DRS open, dump ERS, all that you can to extract all the top speed that you can. Brake at the beginning of the curb at the left hand side for turn 1. Important traction zone through turns 2 and 3. Try not to lose the rear end and lose too much time as we come to another DRS section here. An important overtaking zone where Hamilton and Verstappen collided. As we go in through turn 4, don't run too wide here as we set ourselves up for the end of sector 1, curving through the S's. Turn 7 and 8 now. Important to get the car rotated well through here. Important traction zone coming out of turn 8, and now we come to a difficult braking zone, the double left-hander of turns 9 and 10. Important to brake as in a straight line as possible. Get the car turned in. DRS open once again down the back straight. As he parts under the DHL board, another important braking zone here and an important overtaking point as well as we come into turn 11. Turn 12 is a long looping left-hander as the Alfa Romeo encounters a snap of oversteer coming through turn 13. And coming now to turn 14, the end of sector 2, sector 3 begins. Run as wide as possible as we head down a little straight, possibly the final overtaking point before the lap ends. Get the car turned in for the final corner, a short burst to the line, DRS detection point once again, and that is a lap of Bahrain.
Welcome back. It's myself, Eitzel, and Simply in the commentary box. Good to have you here today, Simply. What are your thoughts on this opening round of such a huge season for the community? 10 seasons. We surely have come a long way at IRC.
Yep, quite a long way indeed. It's been 10 glorious, of course, seasons with a lot of action throughout every single season, through every single race. And I believe Bahrain's going to be the same. I mean, it's a pretty good track for tire strategy to play in. So that's going to be one thing we'll have to look out for. Other than that, well, the drivers are, of course, an interesting sort of part of the race themselves, and they're all going to be providing us with pretty good racing here in Bahrain.
Yep, absolutely. Drivers being the word of the day there. We've had so many people showing interest for this new season. We've had nearly 100 signups, and everybody's been raring to go. It's been a pretty tough time for people in motorsport because obviously we've had a period of pretty much no motorsport for about 2 or 3 months, and this comes at a good time with interest in real life motorsport also ramping up. Season 10 comes at a brilliant time to get everyone involved in the community. Of course, Tier-3 on display tonight, Saturday evenings at 8 p.m. is when you can expect the Tier-3 races to go live in your YouTube. And we'll hopefully get underway into the lobby in just a second. As the weather forecast pops up on our screen, and no surprises there, it's a Bahrain race and it's completely dry, meaning the practicing that everyone's done in the background should come into effect.
Yes, indeed, I'm just back. I was gone for a second, but looks like the first few cars are already out for Bahrain's qualifying. And as Etzel had mentioned, try race, of course. And yeah, well, I think Ripe is the first car out, so we're going to have to see what sort of a banker lap he does alongside everyone else. There's one turn that he's going through right now. I don't know the corner numbers, I do apologize for that, but it will be something to look out for because it is a very tricky corner, especially that inside curb that really spins people out. So yeah, let's see what Ripe can do for the first ever lap in qualifying this season.
As the drivers do head out onto their first banker laps, let's have a quick rundown of the grid in Tier 3 this season. So obviously, we are on board Ripe here, who's going to be driving for Williams. So he's currently in the Williams. And he's going to be one of the drivers to keep an eye out for. Definitely a driver with a lot of potential, a lot of pace, as we've seen in past seasons, has been out of the curve a little bit when it comes to league racing, but he's looking to get back into it slowly but steadily. We have a few other noteworthy names as well on the grid who are making returns from previous seasons. Obviously, we have the likes of Ace Scope, Ritesh Gaming, Eric Griffin as well, some fast drivers who featured in across tiers, a number of tiers. Obviously, there's a restructuring at the beginning of every season, so you'll see various drivers moving up and down the order based on pace. So it's going to be interesting because Tier 3 this season has really got a mixture of a lot of fast drivers, a lot of new names as well. We have quite a few of them: Wolf Imperia, Not an Influencer, Sandeep Maridu, Jinan. Some of these guys have featured once or twice, but for most part, they are really diamonds in the rough that we're waiting to see the full potential of.
Sure, this is a proving ground for all of them to prove themselves how good they are in terms of, managing the pressure, managing their pace, their tire wear, and pretty much basically their driving styles. How well can they drive? How cleanly can they drive? Of course, no doubt all of our drivers are pretty much quite clean and, quite quick drivers themselves as right coming across the line to set the first ever lap of season 10 with 30.8.
Good place to start, but we do expect the times to fall a little bit. We expect times to be in the 29s, and right as I say that, Ritesh crosses the line, occupies provisional pole with a 129.8. So that should be where the bar is set, and yep, we see the times rolling in now as we have Racer in the Mercedes setting a 129.68. So just about a tenth and a half, maybe 2 tenths faster than Ritesh, and yes, the times really are flowing in. Dan, if you can get the time interval changed to the delta. Thank you. And yeah, Blaze, as you can see, shattering the timing screens 3 tenths faster than Wolf Imperia. Wolf Imperia barely had half a second at the top there before Blaze crossed the line and snatched it away. Of course, everybody will have more opportunities to set the fastest lap as more drivers crossing the line now. I think invalidation is not a bigger factor here. There is really no aspect of pushing the track limit, but if you do have to really push the limit if you want to extract the maximum time, of course, that does remain as standard.
Sure, on the topic of track limits, turn 3, or rather the exit of turn 2, quite tricky with the track limits there, and especially turn 4 as well. All of those corners, you can take the curb, and that provokes the drivers to push the limits and get the faster lap times in. But that also means they're on any edge of getting track limits there. Whereas on pretty much every other corner, the curbs are way too high for the drivers to be taking them. There's no time gain. The car just bottoms out, and yeah, you just either spin, lose control, or lose a lot of time, which is of course not beneficial at all in terms of qualifying or even the race.
I think in this track, as you mentioned, Simply, it's very important to be at the limit. But being at the limit has its impacts, as you can see. I think that was more a case of Eric warming up his tires there, but it did look for a second like he lost a little bit of traction coming out of 14 there. And that's pretty much the aim of the game around this track. It's cutting down the power. Traction is such a difficult thing to obtain here at Bahrain, especially those with the assists off. We definitely feel the heat under the Bahrain sun, or underneath the Bahrain lights here, because Bahrain is a night race, of course. But traction is the name of the game, and it's really important, especially through this section here, coming through turns 1, 2, and 3, to put down the power. Even those with PC medium are struggling over the past few days, especially in the practice lobbies that we've had. People complaining about putting the power down and spinning out, and that's going to have a major impact on the tires as well because of the scrubby nature of Bahrain's surface. The track surface is rather abrasive, so tire wear is quite high here. Softs don't last very long. But it's not affecting Eric Griffin right now. Seems to have gone purple in Sector 1. Still waiting for the telemetry to come through, but seems to be on a good lap so far. Fairly clean. Sector 1 coming through Sector 2 here. Very good line through 9 and 10. Difficult corner to get absolutely right. And DRS open down the back straight, coming through 11. Important to get the car positioned perfectly to maximize track usage and not clip that curb on the inside too much. All the way flat through here, even in these modern cars, it's struggling a little bit with the bottoming out. You don't want to go too far over those curbs. Last few corners here for Eric, but looks like a tidy lap so far from the Ferrari driver. Provisional pole maybe?
Could be on the cards. Looks like fastest sector 1 and 2. So provisional pole could fully be on the line coming through the final corner now. A bit tricky on the exit again with the power, but no worries for Eric Griffin as he comes across the line. Misses out on provisional pole by 2/10, but still a very good lap nonetheless.
Yep, misses out narrowly, but there will be more time. There is a lot of time and a few laps left for all of these guys to improve. Obviously, you can make very few setup changes because of the influence of Park Ferme. You can't really make too many changes, the front wing and the tire pressures, but that's about it. Of course, you can also mess around with the diff, etc. But the amount of control you have over the setup after Park Ferme is in play is very minimal. So drivers have to be cautious with what setups they choose and how they're setting up the car, because you have to use the same setup for the race. So you risk that.
Yep.
You run the risk of getting the setup wrong.
Exactly. You could Bahrain such a track where it confuses the drivers because the main long straight where, or rather a longer sector 1 with loads of straight where, it is beneficial to run that low downforce, get that top speed in there. So, basically it makes it harder for the drivers behind to overtake them during the race situation. Or if they're following someone, they can overtake them quite easily. But then again, you also have to prioritize, sector 2 and 3 where it requires that downforce to be there to, make sure that you're getting the corners right. So drivers do, end up getting confused at Bahrain whether to go with a low downforce setup or a high downforce setup at first. They have to find some sort of a mutual middle ground between the two of them for an optimal setup. But yeah, it's just a thing that happens in Bahrain. It's quite common, but we will have to see which driver, to be honest, has an optimal setup or someone perhaps who's running, a low downforce as well as the high downforce setup.
Reading the chat here, I'm just getting a lot of love for all the drivers, a lot of people showing their support for their favorite drivers on the grid today. A lot of comments coming in for Eric Griffin as well. Good to see that everyone's getting involved in the first race of the season. Good to see such a strong showing for Tier-3 as well. All 20 drivers available. It's something a little bit of a thing that we've had in past seasons where there's not been a great level of involvement, but this time the community's really come together to put on a show, and you're seeing that. It's so good to have sim racing back now more than anything. As that's racer seems to be on a fast lap, but he's getting absolutely blocked. There's no other word for it. That's an AlphaTauri, my apologies. Just very blatantly sitting on the racing line, not really moving aside. It seems like both of them were on fast laps though, so he was under no obligation to give way, but it's still very interesting to see. Racer caught up quite fast to the back of Mr. Rod though.
Yeah, he also had purple sector too, so he could have been on for provisional pole here, but yeah, that block was really unfortunate. Here we can see Venom out, and it was faster, 29.1. So we are gonna see the times break into the 28th maybe as the session progresses thanks to track evolution and the drivers getting a feel of the track themselves. But yeah, coming back to the point, I don't think that would have hindered him much. Racer knows where his potential is, he knows what he can do. He was a bit down on his sector 1 though, but still managed to get a purple sector 2, so he could be one of the challenges for pole here.
Absolutely, he's also looked very strong in the days leading up to the race, putting in a lot of good laps in practice, putting in a lot of time as well. A lot of these guys have put in a lot of time for this particular race. This is one of those challenging tracks that requires maximum commitment, so a lot of race runs and strategy discussions happening in the background. Of course, each team probably has their own little voice channel where they can communicate and coordinate strategy and team orders and stuff like that. Of course, we don't encourage team orders. Hands up, I'm being completely honest. We should always have all the racing done on track and not behind the scenes. But sometimes you have to put the team first and you have to consolidate the results. But don't be seeing anything of that nature in quali where it's just a case of going as fast as you can. Like Vinay is hot on the heels of an AlphaTauri. It's that is Deadshot going through sector 1. The Deadshot also on a hot lap. So if Vinay can time it well, he can actually get a pretty good little slipstream here from Deadshot as he goes down the back straight. But he will suffer from that dirty air coming through this sector, especially as Deadshot runs very wide there. Hasn't invalidated the lap, so he's still on the lap. But that's going to cost the Alpine behind. He's all sorts of sketchy on the exit from turn 8. He's run wide at turn 9. It's just not a great lap there for Deadshot, who probably will have to go again.
Not only for Deadshot, but also for Vinay. I mean, of course, Deadshot's not obliged to move out of the way because he was on a hot lap himself. But yeah, Vinay would be a bit frustrated because he was looking for a pretty good lap here to go into at least the top 10. And yeah, he's just been hindered. But again, no worries for these drivers. They again know their potentials. That's where they're at. They have about 5 or so minutes left on qualifying. They have enough time for at least 1 or 2 more runs. So the only option now they have is to go back into the box, put some fuel back on, or rather reduce some fuel if they were higher on fuel, put on this fresh set of tires and go out again.
Yep, absolutely. We are now coming into that awkward phase of qualifying where sort of the slower drivers are trying to get a foothold in the upper reaches of the table. But more importantly, those faster drivers are now coming out, or rather they were going in a few minutes ago after their last flying run to now fuel up, as you said, put on some fresh rubber and come out again for their final runs of qualifying. A little sketchy there from not an influencer on the curve. You have to keep an eye on those. You can bottom out quite easily. But this is that transitional phase in qualifying where we don't really see much action out on track, with mostly drivers doing in laps and some drivers doing out laps. I've been pulling way over to the right there, making sure not to get in the way of Ace's Scoop here once again. Another IRC veteran. He's been around for 2 or 3 seasons now. Good results for him in Tier-3 last season, and he looked to capitalize on that this season as well. A few other notable names also in the grid. Another one is, of course, Swagger Turbo in P9. He's currently in the pits, but he looked to get himself into that top 5, more importantly, up into that pole position. 4 minutes left in quali, and we're getting some outcomes.
Yep, these faster drivers, especially the top 5, who are in contention for the pole, and that is top 6 because Racer was on a pretty good lap himself. All coming out of the pits now. If they were in the pits, bit squibbly by. Oh, that's Eric Griffin out of the qualifying session. And yep, unfortunate for Eric Griffin there. He is out of the qualifying session. He will not get another chance to get that pole. Whereas his teammate Sandeep Maridu down on his second sector time. And yeah, he'll be finishing his lap. But coming back to what I was saying earlier, all these top 6 guys now will be coming out, doing out laps, preparing to go for the final runs. All they can hope for now is a pretty clean lap, especially Racer, since he was blocked, and just hope to get that pole.
Yep, unfortunate for Eric Griffin, but unfortunately that is the nature of qualifying. You're oftentimes pushing the limits, and sometimes you wander ever so slightly past it. And he's at that part of the track as well where it would be quite dangerous. Ooh, that's another car park there on the exit of 13, it seemed like. But yeah, no safety car in the qualifying, so drivers will just wave Eric as they pass by, wave to Eric as they pass by, and that will be it. And then they'll meander on to their own laps as Sandeep is doing right now, although I think this is the end of his lap and he's not moved up or moved down. He has not really moved much at all on this position. Mr. Raut finds himself quite far back. He is on his outlap, so he'll have a chance to improve. So now at this point of quali, we'll see a lot of drivers out on a lap at the same time. You can see by the track map at the bottom right, there's quite a lot of traffic, as that's an interesting shortcut there from Deadshot. He's finding track limits that were previously unexplored. That's a new line that we haven't quite seen through the gravel. He's you could argue he's actually lost more time taking that line than if he had stayed on track.
Yeah, well, we did say that, in the briefing that the drivers cannot cut a few corners to gain lap time, so that will be a bit dodgy for him. He might get reported for it, might get penalized for it. But yeah, Racer starting his lap now, already is in his second sector for his lap, going about to finish this as well. Quite a tricky corner, this taking it in sixth gear. This one, the long right-hander being long right-hander, he's tackled it quite well. 500s down from P1, though still looking like a solid P2 finisher. All he has to do is just nail that final corner now, and he will be on for pole position. Let's see what can Racer do. Fifth gear, short shifting the fifth gear to get that traction. He's out of the ERS, but with the help of DRS, can he get pole? Yes, he does. The 29.893, division 4. It's only 500 off of Blaze though, so that time could be beaten by Blaze quite quickly, or rather anyone else who is in contention for the pole.
Yep, great lap there by Racer. He managed to make up that half a tenth that he was losing through Sector 2 in Sector 3. Must have been that great exit that he got out of the final corner and down the back straight, and wasn't really affected too much by the fact that he had run out of ERS as well. So yeah, great lap there by Racer. You could almost wonder what he would have been able to do had he had a full battery at the beginning of the lap. But will that be the last opportunity for him? I don't think there will be enough time for him to go on another lap. Yeah, surely not. With 27 seconds remaining. This will be an opportunity for everyone else in the lobby though to pip him as Blaze winds himself up for a fast lap, a full battery as well. And this should be an absolute barnstormer from him if he gets all the elements right, if he gets it hooked up. Ooh, good line through turn 1, got a brilliant exit out of there, clean line through turns 2 and 3 as well. Tail waggling a little bit, but nothing that will phase him one bit. Cars moving aside, not really getting in the way. Blaze is on a charge here as he comes into Sector 2. Let's check the timing. He's purple in Sector 1 by the narrowest of margins as he heads down into turn 8, difficult braking zone, getting the car turned in. Lovely line there by Blaze. Everything seems to be going super well for him so far. Wide entry through turn 9, get the braking right for turn 10. Well executed there by the McLaren driver. Quite a lot of traffic up ahead of him though. Surely that doesn't impede him. One car moving out of the way, two cars down the road as he comes down to turn 11, gets the car flicked in. Good line through there. Car looks very planted through that section as he comes past the Sector 2 timing line. Is he up? Ooh, he's doing very well. He's got a personal best there and he's 3/10 up on his own time. This should be a provisional pole select here from Blaze as he comes around the final corner. Can't really mess this up at this point. Good exit there as well. Short shifts a little bit into 6th almost. DRS open, crosses the line, and yeah, that was expected. A 28.7 from Blaze right at the end of qualifying. A few drivers left now. E-Dog crossing the line. My apologies, Destroyer Drag crossing the line now. DRS open, up on his personal best, but will that be enough? It's enough for P3, it's enough for a second row start.
Yep, still a pretty good lap. E-Dog as well, he's improved by quite a bit up into P5. Eric Griffin, despite the retirement, despite not being able to go again, still P4 by the end of qualifying. Still a pretty good position to start. I believe that will be the inside of the grid, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yep, that'll be on the inside for him.
That will be a pretty good starting position then for him, especially going into turn 1 on lap 1. All he has to do is just make it clean through there, make sure he does not get into any incidents, and Eric Griffin will fully be on for the podium challenge here as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Over now. Go on, Ethan.
Qualifying does come to an end with Blaze taking pole position by nearly 3.5 tenths. Racer and Destroyer Drag very close between the two of them, 3 and a bit tenths between them, and then the rift is quite far to Eric Griffin, who doesn't really lose a lot even though he retired quite early from qualifying. He still qualifies P4 on the second row and will have a nice run down to turn 1. Will he be able to gain positions? E-Dog, Wolf Imperia, Mohan, Aces Scoop, Ritesh, and Not an Influencer around our top 10. Swagger Turbo, Sandeep, Mighty Owl, Ripe, and a few other drivers rounding out the top 20 as we just have a look at the fastest times for each driver.
I did
And that
notice
would be
something
it.
though there, Rachel.
Hmm.
Blaze as
Do
well
tell.
as Racer, both of them used up all three of the softs available to them in qualifying, which means that they've also used up the one fresh set that people usually save for the race in case they do need it. However, because of Eric Griffin retiring from qualifying earlier, he only got to use two of his sets, so he has still one set fresh. So he could have an advantage that if we do end up having a late race safety car.
Yeah, he could, but the way we've seen it with the length of the, you mean the period of the active working window for the softs is only 4 or 5 laps. So the late safety car would have to come really late to the point where the softs have enough of a window to get to the end, but not so short that you don't really get them fired up at all.
Yep.
But more to the point, as you mentioned, the other guys don't have that extra set of softs, or rather, if they do go for the soft, would it end up being a used set? So, not really a great position for them having used that extra set, but we'll see as the race unfolds how the strategy unfolds. Obviously, something dynamic that changes on a minute by minute basis based on what's happening in the race,
Yep.
real time thinking on your feet. These are all buzzwords that are used when it comes to strategy. So, time will tell.
Indeed, time will tell. And before we get started, let's quickly get your predictions for the top three itself.
Ooh, it's difficult to say with the pace that we saw from Blaze. He could put on a really good performance, but the last thing I would want is to inflict a commentator's curse. That's something that IRC is very well known for. We end up saying one driver will do well, and knowing probably Blaze is gonna die exactly where Mazepin did, for example, on lap one. So anything could happen. We don't really know. Bahrain is one of those tracks where the order can get really shuffled up, especially with the undercuts and stuff like that. So with that in mind, it's hard to pin it on one driver to get the win today, or even a top three. But I would say Blaze is my nomination for who's going to win today. I think he put on a strong show in quali, so I think he should put on a strong show in the race as well. But as you said, don't count out Eric.
Of course, let's not count out Eric here either. Even though he's starting in P4, he does, of course, have a lot of pace himself. He could, probably be fighting for the win here as well. Of course, it all comes down to various other factors. But as far as predictions go, I would say Eric Griffin for the win.
Yep, absolutely. Strong prediction there. Of course, this extends to everyone in the chat as well. Do drop your predictions. So, a lot of support for a lot of drivers. So, drop your predictions. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think you'll see a safety car? Don't bet your money on that one, I would say. But yeah, as we're just heading into the race now, is it just me, or are all the pit crews doing T poses right now? That's very interesting. All the mechanics are lined up one after the other, helmet to helmet, and they're all doing the T-pose. Is that some sort of tribute act? I don't quite know.
I guess it's sort of a ritual for good luck for their drivers, I'm guessing.
Of course. Of course. And then on the other side of the pit wall, there's all the marshals looking at them wondering, what the hell is going on?
Well,
6 seconds left
all right.
as we head into the race. 4 months since we last had racing action here at IRC. 5 lights are out, and
Well,
away we go. There we go. There was a little bit of a delay. The lights seemed to go out, but the drivers seemed to think, no, I'll go in my own time. It seemed like Eric got an amazing start there. He's already up into P1. Great start for the Ferrari driver there. He's shot into the lead. A little bit of a lazy start from Blaze there. It seems like he started on the hard tires, so going for the reverse strategy. And yeah, the telemetry reflecting that as well. He's on the hard tires. Couple of drivers moving up and down the grid in the background. Mamuka Admi in P14 also dropping back a little bit, but he's made up a position on dead shot. Up ahead, this is Destroyer Drac being pressured by Ritesh going into turn 8. 2 Alfa Romeos, one behind the other. Wolf Imperia following. So in formation, dives down the inside and leaves his teammate for the dust. Might compromise Ritesh because E-Dog is right on his tail going into turn 9. We'll be seeing an Alonso style move from Ritesh. He doesn't even have to try because he was always ahead of the Williams driver. Keeps position there. Mohan also making up positions in the background, not an influencer, losing a few positions there from P10 down to P11. But more importantly, at the front, what a start from Eric, really making that tire advantage count on the medium tires. He's already 7/10 up and 3 positions gained even before turn 1. That is the perfect start for someone like Eric, who can now capitalize and control the pace from the front of the field. But keep in mind, Blaze is on the reverse strategy.
Yep, Blaze strategy could work out if there is no safety car between the laps of lap 10 and lap 13 or 14. So Blaze could be on the winning strategy here, although he will be slow for the first 5 laps because of the nature of the track. Doesn't have enough grip for the first 5 or so laps, and then after that, suddenly you feel so much grip with those hards, and suddenly the hards will become faster in the matter of 2 or 3 laps from then on. Obviously, because of track evolution as well as the medium tires dying. As you can see, Mighty all pitting already for the hard tires. Didn't change his wings, so not sure what he's doing there. But yeah, amazing stuff from Eric Griffin, and we can see not an influencer trying to make a move down the inside of Swagger Turbo. Cannot do so because now Mohan R is now going side by side with him through turns 5. Now 6. But yeah, not an influencer, still ahead. I think someone was sending it down the inside of the Ace Scoop. Having a quick look down the inside of Mohan, but decides to not send a move. Of course, the safest strategy. One more lap until the DRS.
Yep, absolutely. Interesting with Mighty Owl that you noted just before. He went into the pits, but he didn't seem to change his wing. He also got a 5-second penalty for speeding into the pit lane. So really capitulating one error after another there for Mighty Owl. Got some wing damage on that opening lap, and he's it's not going well for the Alpine driver. Currently finding himself in P19. Deadshot as well did not seem to get a great start off the line. A couple of drivers at the back there who've been languishing after these first few laps, but it's been good up at the front for Eric, who's now 1.4 seconds clear, while the midfield battles are really popping off here. Wolf Empiria attacking the Destroyer drag up ahead in the Aston Martin. We saw a few corners earlier. We saw not an influencer going up against Mohan Aces, who trying to capitalize on their little battle, as well as Wolf Empiria goes down the inside. Will he get the move done? Both of them on similar tires. No, Destroyer's actually on the hards, struggling to fire those hards up in the opening few laps. It'll take him another lap or two to get those into the window, but he's coming back at Wolf Empiria down the inside through turn 4. That's the old Charles Leclerc switcheroo there. The battle isn't quite over as they head into Sector 2, still side by side. This is where normally the battle ends, and yes, that is Wolf Empiria finally getting the move done on the Aston Martin. And I would say now that Destroyer is going to be targeted by a few more drivers, as we see E-Dog also getting through on the medium tires. And yes, it's going from bad to worse as he tries to defend around the outside and spins in the background there. It seemed like he broke on the outside curb, and unfortunately it's ended up in him losing more positions than he would have bargained for. Unfortunate for the Aston Martin driver.
Unfortunate indeed, but he'll kind of be happy as well, because now at least those hard tires will have some sort of temps in them. So he will have that grip earlier than the other drivers. But yeah, we can see a bit of a squabble between Vinay and Raip and Mamuk Admi, or rather Red Bull driver as his name is in the game right now. A multiple way battle for, I believe, P11 between all of these drivers. There is Ace and Scoop joining the battle as well. Red Bull drivers behind the train, but still quite close. All of them squabbling for DRS. Like DRS chicken there is between Ace and Scoop and Destroyer track. With the DRS on Aces Scoop, but Aces Scoop also has the DRS from the cars ahead, and as Red Bull driver going into the pits. Ritesh getting close to Mohan again. Mohan goes a bit deep. That's going to compromise his exit out of turn 2. Will he be able to make a move? Will Ritesh be able to make a move rather on Mohan by the end of this straight? Doesn't seem to be close enough to do so. He could send a dive bomb, but he decides not.
Up ahead, Wolf, Empiria and E-Dog are also squabbling for position, constantly going side by side again through Sector 2. And that's E-Dog getting ahead of Wolf Empiria, but Wolf Empiria is sliding one down the inside, trying to get the position back from him. as they go into turns 9 and 10, difficult braking zone, but they both get the car stopped just about. You can also see in the background there that Swagger Turbo lurking in the background. If there is an incident involving these two, then he will try to capitalize on it. Wolf Imperial gets a penalty there, and that is Sandeep Maridu in the Ferrari having a little bit of a moment. Mr. Raut also putting one down the inside of Vinay going into turn 9. Good move there. From the AlphaTauri driver. This battle for P4 still ongoing. Racer, Blaze and Eric have checked out a little bit, and interesting to note, Blaze has closed the gap on Eric a little bit to 5/10. So those hards are finally starting to come into the window. So those who had started on the reverse strategy will now really see the benefit of starting on the hards.
Yep, but the question is, did Blaze absolutely dump his DRS or not? We can see a battle for P2 up ahead between Blaze and Racer. Racer with the advantage of those medium tires because they're still in their prime, ahead of Blaze. Blaze completely out of the ERS. Racer has a lot of ERS, but he's not using any of it. Blaze sending it down the inside of Racer here. Racer not giving up just yet. It says on the outside, a bit squabbly on the exit, but manages to stay ahead of from Blaze. And Blaze, unfortunate, they're pretty good try, but yep, he'll just have to go again. What does not happen is the fact that he's not, he does not have sufficient ERS. He's quite low on.
Yeah, I think in the grand scheme of things, Blaze will be happy he wasn't involved in that battle for more than a few corners, because the idea behind starting on the hards is to try to make them go as long as possible, maybe last 1 or 2 safety car periods, then you just pit directly to the softs and have a absolute frenzy of fastest laps at the end. But Blaze should try to just sit back a bit, just observe his surroundings, just try to gather some ERS as well. It'll be important in the long run that he doesn't get into a battle with those up ahead, because they're already in their warmed up phase. You don't want to burn out those hards before they even get to their window and then struggle with tire wear later on. So I think it would be wise of Blaze to just stay put there, stay within the DRS and try not to lose too much time to the drivers ahead. Seems to be going a good job as it is, but as you mentioned, he is quite low on ERS. As the battle behind for P4 is entering its hot phase as E-Dog moves out of the slipstream. Will try to make a move down the inside of Wolf Imperia in the Alfa Romeo. Gets the move done, but he'll now have to defend from Imperia going down this second DRS straight here. Imperia will have the DRS. Will he try to make the move? Will E-Dog defend? Doesn't defend too much. Keeps the outside line. Tries to still defend around the outside, but I don't think that position will last for long as Imperia gets back up ahead well before the beginning of Sector 2.
Yeah, well, it's not the ideal place to make a move for sure unless you have a clear tire and pace advantage. It's just not going to work out, and it did not for E-Dog. Wolf Imperia still in P4, but something we have not spoken about is the fact that he does have a time penalty of some sort, so we don't know if it's going to be removed or not, but one thing is for sure that will be hindering his ending position here. As Racer getting very close to Eric Griffin now, only 2.5 tenths separate the two of them. This could be a spicy battle for the lead.
Absolutely. Eric Griffin, who's been pretty much scot-free in the lead until now faces a threat from behind for the first time in 6 laps. He's had some time to open a gap, but it's not been as advantageous as he would have initially hoped, because Racer's been right on his diffuser. Well, he was on Blaze's diffuser until a few laps earlier, but he's really flying on those medium tires. Will he try to make the move for the lead? Took P2 on the last lap. Will he move for P1 on this lap? Eric stays ahead almost until the braking zone. They're side by side going through the corner, and Racer leaves him a lot of room on the inside. Eric goes on the curb, loses some time. Not a great exit there. Eric might actually be a sitting duck here for Blaze, who'll try to go down the inside. They're 3 wide going into turn 4, although Blaze backs out at the last minute. But ultimately, Eric moves to P2, but more importantly, Racer takes the race lead. No pun intended, but great move there from the Mercedes driver. Mercedes, Ferrari and McLaren fighting at the front. Are we in the 90s? Mercedes won there, but you get what I'm trying to say. Really good racing. There seems to be racing all over the park right now.
Yep, racing all over the grid. Pretty entertaining race watch. Of course, we cannot cover it all, but please keep an eye out on the timing sheets, because you will be able to see the moves for your favorite drivers all over the timing sheets. As we can see, not an influencer quite close behind Swagger Turbo, but of course not an influencer not too high on the ERS. That's Vinay that's out in this battle between Blaze and Eric Griffin. And Eric Griffin's down into P3, so clearly Blaze's tires, those cards, really starting to kick in now, especially now that the mediums are going to start dropping off very, very quickly here.
Absolutely. Couple of people in the chat asking if there's a driver of the day vote. And something we'll have to discuss in the background. Unfortunately, we don't have something of that sort. But you can definitely show your support, a lot of support for Wolf Imperia, as that's right. Making a mistake, it seemed like, coming out of 13 there. He seemed to lose the rear end of the car or lost traction or something, because he's lost a few positions there. The battle in the midfield, just behind the front three, is really popping off right now. P4 to P7 separated by just over a second. That's all. And they've all got DRS, so this makes it a little bit more complicated to overtake. DRS trading is quite unfortunate factor, unfortunate byproduct of Bahrain's extensive use of DRS zones. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how Not an Influencer carves through these guys. He's had a lot of pace, but it seems like one of these guys is the cork in the bottle for this battle to really unfold. E-Dog still in a commanding position over Wolf Imperia, seems to be holding his own against the faster drivers behind him. But this is a proper battle. This is one to keep an eye out for us. That's Not an Influencer sticking his nose on the inside of Swagger Turbo there for a brief second. Mohan also not too far behind. There's 5 drivers in this battle now. Although it seems like E-Dog has checked out a little bit of a gap between himself and Wolf Imperia, but it's hotting up in the midfield. More importantly, how will this affect strategy? Because the way I see it, these guys, I mean, by squabbling with each other is great entertainment, but from a strategy perspective, the undercut is going to be a little bit more difficult for these guys to execute.
Yep, they're going to have to rely on an overcut or pitting with the drivers ahead on the same lap and hoping that it works, or hoping that they have a lot more pace, because all of them are pretty much out of the ERS as well. And thanks to this game's physics, as well as Bahrain being Bahrain, all of them have pretty much used up all of their ERS, and it's very hard to gain that ERS back. So that is also something that will be in major consideration when they're fighting for positions here. And that could maybe mess up a few drivers' races as well, because, you know, the drivers who are fast enough on pure pace will have a lot more ERS compared to the drivers who are not. And yeah, those drivers could be on for a win here, as I think Blaze and Racer are getting quite close as well. Well, Blaze was very momentarily, but still not too far away from each other. Eric Griffin in that battle as well, all the top 3 within a second of each other. This battle for the lead is not over yet.
You've done a lot of really get to the strategies here. How long do the mediums last here? Around about 10 or 12 laps would be my estimation, simply.
Well, the mediums last for about 14 or 15 laps, but they really just start dropping off after the 7th or 8th lap. So after the 7th or 8th lap, it's just trying to stretch them on for as long as possible. Whereas the hards, interestingly, they go on for about 17, 18 laps. You can really stretch them out until then. Of course, they do drop off after lap 12 or 13, and that's a spin from Wolf Imperia. Very, very rare to see Wolf Imperia making mistakes. But we can give him a bit of cut here, because it is the first race of the season. Everyone's coming back after a long time. This is not an influencer making a move on Swagger Turbo before he even gets to turn 1. Swagger Turbo tried to go for a switchback there, but he could not because of the lack of traction. Does have the DRS, though, has a lot more DRS as well compared to Not an Influencer. He's being forced around the outside of Not an Influencer, apologies. Both are going side by side. Influencer goes deep into the corner, goes into neutral momentarily there to try and stop the car, but of course you cannot stop the car in neutral. And Swagger Turbo being hindered on the apex there from Not an Influencer, and Not an Influencer surprisingly having the DRS, and that just means that Swagger Turbo will just have to go again the next lap.
Yep, defended well there from the Merc, but more importantly in the background, we had a brief look at Wolf Imperia there as he lost traction. Could also a case be made that they went side by side through that corner, got on the inside, got on the curb a little bit. It does have, that's a vicious inside curb there coming into intersect just before the sector 3 timing line, where you can really lose the car even if you just kind of think about mounting it. It has that kind of an influence on drivers. So unfortunate for Wolf Imperia, he's not too far behind though, behind that pack. So if he can get his race strategy together, and is that Blaze losing out there? That was a bit of a mistake there from the McLaren driver. He was in P2, but now he's fallen down to P3 because he's had a little bit of a movement coming out of turn 11.
Yeah, racers can absolutely appreciate this because Eric Griffin was not fast enough to get within a second of Racer, and now this gives Racer a very, very good opportunity here to pull away from these two guys. As long as of course, they end up squabbling, which by the looks of it, they are doing so rather. Blaze gets past Eric Griffin here. Eric Griffin not giving up until the end, and I think Blaze might not have the DRS for this straight. We'll have to see who has it. Eric Griffin does, so does Blaze, to be fair. Eric Griffin and Blaze now going side by side. Eric Griffin has a look down the inside. He sends it down the inside. Both are going side by side through turn 4. And nobody's done a Max Verstappen or Hamilton just yet. And yeah, Eric Griffin had to back out from there because if they both went side by side through that section of corners, both of them might have had an incident. But yeah, still an amazing battle from both of them.
Absolutely. I was just going to say, these guys are so... I mean, yes, in racing, there's a kind of fine line to be drawn between being respectful and giving each other space, as that's Sandeep Maridu and Mr. Roth going wheel to wheel, and Sandeep just sticking the car down the inside. Ferrari moves up into P12. But yeah, as you were saying, that battle between the two of them was really, really clean, really respectful. They gave each other space, but at the same time, they were going to leave nothing on the table. Of course, circumstances might be different if it was the last lap, but at this point in the race, they're still keeping it fairly clean. Really, really nice to see that they're being respectful, but they are still pushing each other wheel to wheel and pushing themselves to limits.
Yep, Racer still, I'm pretty sure he'll be quite happy with it because the drivers behind Blaze and Eric Griffin. Since they're fighting it out, Racer really does not have to use a lot of his DRS, so he can just, just take a bit of a chill pill, coup back some of that DRS in case he does have to use it afterwards. On the Blaze, we can see Racer defending the inside completely. Blaze going for a switchback line here. Will he be able to do so? He's getting quite close to Racer here. He will have the DRS on Racer. Racer, very close there. Racer was probably on the exit. That's compromised Blaze as well. Blaze being forced around the outside, going into turn 4, and he's still around the outside. Who will give up between the two of them going into turn 5? By the looks of it, none of them. They're still going side by side through turn 6. And oh no, that is Racer who's been spun around, or rather has spun by himself. Those tires do look dead though, and that is not good for Racer. Although E-Dog will absolutely appreciate it since he is in top 3.
What a moment there in the race. Could that be a race-defining moment? There's another McLaren. That's a McLaren there. Another car spinning, not an influencer losing the car coming out of turn 8. But yeah, a little bit of an awkward moment there for Racer because he found himself on worn tires on that unoptimum line going through turn 6. And he just ended up on the marbles and just kind of lost the car on that outside line. The tires just not able to keep up with the traction request that that the Racer was expecting of the asking too much of the tires at that point. It just lost the car, although a case could be made that there was maybe a little bit of contact there, a little wheel to wheel contact. This game does have quite an awkward contact model, so sometimes what could have been a wheel to wheel battle in real life ends up just being a spin in this game. So we'll give Racer some benefit of the doubt, but yeah, as you said, those tires, especially after that spin, will be properly cooked. So you might even see Racer diving into the pits on this lap, but he doesn't, as Mohan makes a move down the inside of Swagger Turbo, now finds himself in the top 4 after E-Dog and Not an Influencer pitted just behind him. So Swagger also in a pretty good position if he can stay within DRS and maximize the time on these tires. He could just come out ahead of some of these guys as he sends it very, very deep into turn 4. Might lose a position here, but it seemed like his teammate behind him also didn't get the greatest exit out of turn 2, so he wasn't close enough to capitalize. But really a war moment there, a Burr moment, if you will, from Swagger as he locks up. Wasn't really a lock-up, he just kind of overestimated his brakes there. But not good there for the McLaren driver, the Mercedes driver. He loses a lot of time on Mohan as a result.
Yeah, and Eric Griffin taking the lead of this race from Blaze. But do remember, Eric Griffin's tires going to be pretty much dead by this point. Blaze's tires doing quite well. And considering Swagger went deep there and he's lost a lot of time, there might be team orders between him and his teammate Racer here, because Racer seems to be the fastest driver up until this point of the race. And him not being held up by his teammate could mean that he has a better chance of catching up to the top 3, because he certainly does have top 3 pace.
Absolutely. A couple more penalties for a few more drivers. So we'll see some penalties coming in for not an influencer and Ritesh as well. Since we last checked, Wolf Imperial was the only one with a penalty as Swagger comes into the pits as expected, goes on to the hard tires. No FIA intervention on wheel jacks here because, well, it's not a safety car and he doesn't really have a penalty. So good pit stop there for Swagger. Comes out just behind right there or just behind Mr. Raut. Will he get the move on E-Dog? No, E-Dog also comes out ahead of him. Comes out in P10 in the end. So that little battle, that little outbreaking moment that he had hasn't helped him a huge amount, and now he has to warm up those hard tires, which takes about 3 or 4 laps, so he'll be losing a bit more time.
He's going to lose a lot more time here. You can see already struggling with the grip here. He's not going to have a lot of temps in those, as you said, for the next 3 or 4 laps. By the end of those, he's going to have a lot of grip, of course, because of the track evolution and such. But until then, he's going to be struggling a bit. And that could mean that Ritesh was already gained 3 seconds on him. Will be getting closer and closer. And if Swagger ends up battling with Ritesh, then that could compromise his strategy even further. But talking about strategies here, Eric Griffin really stretching those mediums out, whereas Blaze will be quite comfortable for the next couple of laps here. He doesn't really have to pit just yet. Talking about that, Eric Griffin goes into pits, but not without giving Blaze DRS. So that's going to help him out just a bit here as well. And Blaze's pit window really opens in the next 2 or so laps. And the ideal time to pit for the Hearts will be by the end of lap 17. Pretty much an overcut on the other drivers here. And the mediums warm up as well. It's quite shorter, much shorter compared to the Hearts. The mediums really get up to temp in just about half a lap. So Blaze could fully be on with a massive advantage here by the end of the pit stops.
Absolutely. A lot of support for Wolf Imperia in the chat. A lot of people coming in and saying he's on the comeback drive and he's on the charge. I definitely want him to put on something similar, lads. So more support for Wolf Imperia, please. And there was someone asking earlier about what was the impact of the undercut and if they have actually gained time. A classic example is E-Dog and Swagger. They're separated by around 2.5 seconds, and E-Dog just pitted a lap or so before Swagger, and they were roughly on track, separated by maybe a second and a half or so before they pitted. So he's getting a little bit of time. It's not a huge deficit, but obviously it's impacted more by if you're battling with someone actively on track when you go for the undercut. So you can gain a little bit of time here, but ultimately it's down to the situations before and after the pit stop. It's kind of settled down. The grid has spread apart a little bit here, but we are seeing quite a shuffling up of the grid. So we're seeing a few people up at the front who are on used tires, of course. So we'll see Blaze and Destroyer and Ripe going for a few more laps. They'll probably go for another 3 or 4 laps before they pit in for the mediums. Then you see Mohan, speak of the devil, as I mentioned his name, both him and Jinan come into the pits to get rid of those 15-lap-old mediums. They'll actually probably be running less laps on the hards than they will be on the mediums. That's an interesting strategy there from the two of them. But they've pitted very late after staying out on those mediums for quite a long time. And where will they come out? Only time will tell, as a few drivers coming past the pit lane here. I expect them to come out maybe P9, 10 or P10 and 11 as Mohan is coming out of the pit lane. Now we should see him. There he is on the apex, almost destroys a car there as he was going by because he couldn't get those hard tires warmed up. And they've actually come out ahead of Swagger Turbo, so he's not really gotten his hards warmed up in time, the Mercedes driver. Meanwhile, his teammate is on the charge here. Is it getting past Jinan there?
Yeah, well, Jinan has just come out of the pits, so he will be struggling. Although Swagger will have a lot more temperature compared to Jinan, and by the looks of he is ahead. Mr. Raut and Mohan, the sister team, and the A team fighting it out here between each other. Mohan seems to be quite a bit ahead, and Mr. Raut making a mistake on this 15-lap-old hards. That's cost him 2 positions in a matter of just 1 corner, and he's yet to pit, so that's going to really mess up his strategy here, and he's losing another position to Racer. So Mr. Raut clearly seems to be struggling with the tires here. 17 laps into the race. But luckily for him, this is his pit window, and he will be pitting by the end of this lap. And Swagger Turbo and Jinan still going side by side. Swagger Turbo took him quite a while to try and get close to Jinan here, despite him pitting much earlier compared to Jinan. And by the look of it, now he'll be ahead. He's going to get a much better exit compared to Jinan, obviously, because of the fresher tires. Or not, Jinan's gotten a much better exit compared to Swagger Turbo. Also has the DRS. Swagger Turbo defending the inside, but Jinan says move aside because he's taken the deepest line through there, and he's gone straight though because of the, of course, lack of temperature in those hearts, and a great battle between the two of them. Not over yet though.
Jinan said, I'm coming through. And Swagger said, maybe not today. As Jinan locked up through turn 1 there. Not ideal for him, but that was a good battle while it lasted. A lot of action happening now though, as tires are getting warmed up. People are getting into their groove as they come into the second stint. There is Racer doing or trying the audacious switchback going through turn 8 on Mohan. Will we try for the Alonso move? He does. He tries. He sticks his nose down the inside but doesn't commit to it fully, and Mohan has to do a sort of half-hearted, I'll go around the outside but I'll also try to defend to the best of my abilities kind of defense. And as a result of that, he doesn't get a great exit and he doesn't get the move done on the Red Bull. As there was some commitment there from Racer, but unfortunately he just couldn't go through with it.
Yeah, that is a bit unfortunate, of course, but again, he has 10 more laps to go. Plenty of more chances to come, and I think with the help of the DRS here, he might be able to make a move going into turn 1, considering he's only within half a second here, and that Aston Martin casually running over the Haas pit crew there, but clearly unharmed, so not to worry. Racer though now with the DRS a bit further behind than usual. I think he's lost time on the exit there. Won't be able to make a move into turn 1, unlike I said, but he still has the chance going into turn 4. We will have to stay on board and watch out. So what can Racer do with the DRS? It doesn't seem to be closed yet again, although Mohan leaving, briefly defending the inside but realizing soon that Racer is not close enough to make a move, so he can carry on as is. But yeah, Racer will be getting a bit frustrated, and I think that's Jinan and Destroyer attack, both the Aston Martins going side by side, or it could be a play of Team Orders here.
Actually, funny that you mentioned that, because I was just looking at Destroyer. He's the first of the drivers. Actually, no, he might be one of the first drivers to go on the reverse strategy. So he's pitted in from those hard tires. He's now on to the mediums. So ideally, his teammate Jinan up ahead should be letting Drac through, because and that's Sandeep Maridu spinning. That's unfortunate for the Ferrari drivers, doing well to get into the top 15, but he's dropped out of it now. But Destroyer on the mediums now. It's interesting how he's going to coordinate with his teammate, because his teammate is on this regular strategy, medium hards, whereas he is on the reverse strategy. So now he's going to be a lot faster in the second phase of the race. Maybe they've just established, look, gentleman's agreement, if you overtake me on track, we've got a deal. So Jinan getting past his teammate in this early phase of his medium stint, because he's not had the tires warmed up, obviously. But now you can expect Destroyer to come back at his teammate. His teammate is definitely not making it easy for him to overtake, weaving down the straights as well. Definitely no semblance of team orders here. And something tells me Destroyer track is going to be a huge influence in this latter half of the race, because he's on the mediums. He's uncontested in terms of a tire advantage, and everybody up ahead is squabbling. Although there is a 26-second gap between Eric and Blaze up at the front, and probably because Blaze hasn't pitted yet. He's lasted a long time on those hards.
I think he's really waiting for a safety car, but by the looks of how everyone's doing a clean race, everyone's having a clean race, and only a few yellow flags, but no VSCs, no SCs. As I say that, there's another yellow flag in Sector 1. That is Sandeep yet again. Again, not enough for a safety car. That is Racer, I think, losing out of position to Mohan. I think he's made a mistake himself coming out of T10. And yeah, I think Blaze, he's finally pitting. He might come out ahead of Eric Griffin here because he had enough of a gap. You only need, if you're within 25 seconds, then you will be undercut. But he had a gap of 27 seconds, close to 28 seconds. So Blaze might be coming out ahead here, and all he has to do is just stay ahead for half a lap, wait for those mediums to get up to temp, and he could be on for a solid win here. It might be close on the pit exit though. It will be close for the first sector for sure because of Blaze's lack of temperature in the tire. But yeah, Blaze has absolutely pulled off the strategy quite well, and he is ahead by 3.5 seconds.
It's not even close, I'd say. It's a huge deficit now for Eric to cut down upon, as that is Destroyer still behind his teammate. They're both on hard tires ahead of him though, so this should be easy pickings for the Aston Martin driver. His teammate weaves into his path. He goes 4 wheels off the track, doesn't make the overtake though, so he won't get any illegal overtakes. His teammate lets him through because of the tire advantage, and that is him going wheel to wheel with Racer there. Or actually, no, that might be, my apologies, that's Swagger Turbo that he's just overtaken there. Good double overtake for Destroyer Drag. And is that Racer up ahead who's lost a position as well to Mohan? So both Mercs losing positions there in the span of a few corners. Tell you what, Destroyer is on a charge right now. I'll just touch wood here because do not want to give him a commentator's curse. It's happened way too many times. I don't want people in my DMs complaining about it. So the Destroyer looks in a very strong position here, at least to get a podium, if not the race win, because I think Blaze has pulled off, as you said, the strategy of dreams. He's come out quite far ahead and on the optimum tire for this latter half of the race. Just benefited a lot from everybody else around him squabbling and battling. And as I said earlier, it would be ideal for him on the hards to just sit back and let them all do their thing, and he'll benefit from it, and he has.
Yes, he has indeed, and I think that's it. Oh, that is not an influencer. Oh, that's a broken wing. I have seen an end plate flying off. That might be because of contact between influencer and Ritesh. Luckily, we do not run simulation damage, so there won't be a puncher for Ritesh, but unfortunately not an influencer will have to pit. But it is a reminder to the viewers as well as the drivers, it is top 15 points, so it's not the end of the day for not an influencer. He can still grab some amount of points with his fresh setup. I think he will have to go for softs at this point, or he's going for the medium, so the softs would be faster at this point. But then again, up to his choice. All he has to do is finish within the top 15 and he will be within the points. Meanwhile, coming back ahead, Racer, who seemed to be quite quick on the first stint, he's struggling on the second stint with the hards, out of the ERS as well, a bit squabbly going into turn 10, and Mohan managing to stay ahead by a little bit though. I think Racer's catching up in the first 2 sectors, but he's not able to keep it through the 3rd sector. That is where he's losing a lot of his time.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, up ahead, Blaze is opening quite a generous gap for himself, 4.4 seconds, and I think if we were to make an educated guess at this point, he's got this in the bag unless he really fumbles the bag. So hopefully he doesn't. And yeah, as you can see, evidence of the fact there, the fastest lap of the race set by Blaze on those fiery hot mediums right now, right in the window. And it's just a case of playing it safe, not getting any penalties, any warnings, or any unnecessary infringements that he doesn't really need to accept anyway. He's quite far ahead. He's got a comfortable lead and he's on the optimum tire. So this is really Blaze's race to lose, as that is Jinan trying for a move. He's gotten the switchback done, not ahead.
Oh. Late safety
That's
car.
A safety car. That is a safety car.
That is Sandeep Maridu out. I think he spun, which one would that be? Turn 11, exit of turn 11?
That is, yeah, exactly. He's lost the car there on the exit of 11. Just pushed those hard tires a bit too much beyond the traction limit and has lost the car. Tell you what though, I was not even completing my statement there when I said Blaze is race to lose. Right now, everybody behind him, especially Eric, as you mentioned, he has that extra set of softs.
To bring that up.
Does he go on to the softs now? Does this bring Eric back into the race contention? More importantly, what does Blaze do from a strategy perspective? Does he dive in? Definitely, I think at this point, would it be wise for him to stay out on the mediums? Could he defend for 5 or 6 laps while everyone else behind him is on the softs? He would have to really, put the bet that drivers behind Eric like E-Dog and Mohan take the fight to him.
I mean, that's an amazing question of Aster Etzel. He could risk it, but I believe, as being a McLaren teammate himself, I wish he goes into the safe pits, and he's not. He's decided to stay out. Eric Griffin, he'll be pitting, and as we said, right through for Mr. Rout. That has made his race from bad to worse. But as I was saying, Eric Griffin taking the gamble, and I believe other drivers are following him in because it is just that much better to go into the pits here with only a few laps remaining, and especially under the safety car where you get much lesser wear. It is completely worth going on to the softs here for the final few laps. They don't drop off up until 4 or 5 laps. That is if they are under pushing conditions, and considering that they won't be for at least another 2 or 3 laps, that leaves them with about the correct amount of laps, about 4 or 5 laps on the soft here. So we will be keeping an eye out on the soft runners here, because they could be in contention for the win, especially Eric Griffin, because he only used 2 sets of his tires in qualifying because of course, unfortunately retiring in the race. But again, that apologies qualifying, but that does give him an advantage here in the race. So he could be on for the win here as long as he does not make any mistakes, keeps it clean, and does not pick up any penalties.
Yep, well summed up there. That's about as well as you can describe this final phase of the race now, with the safety car that has now come out. Tell you what though, Eric does have a bit of a task ahead of him, because he's got a few drivers up ahead of him who have been strong throughout this race, and more importantly, they've got the optimum tire on as well. So the likes of Blaze and Destroyer now have warmed up tires that are in the window, so they might not be as easy to dispatch as the likes of Jinan and Racer, who are on those hard tires. More importantly, for the hard runners, the safety car will mean that they lose quite a lot of temp in those tires, and being a slightly harder compound, it is harder to get temps into the tire as well when you're warming them up for the safety car restart. So it's really hard to say. It's good. That's good. The fact that it's not predictable is a good thing. The fact that we don't really know who's going to win this is a good thing. It's for an entertainment purpose. But it's going to be interesting to see how long Blaze is going to be looking in the mirrors to see if Eric Griffin's going to send one from Narnia right at turn 1. Does he go for it? Does he do it as soon as the flag goes green? Does he try to capitalize on the fact that he's on that soft tire as quickly as possible, try to make up a few positions immediately? You never know, he might just. But E-Dog, Eric Griffin, and Red Bull car driver, which is Mahmoud Kadmi, and Aces Scoop, all these guys have now got a second opportunity at getting some more points in this race. Tell you what though, Mist has also retired at some point during this race, because when Sandeep retired, it was just him that had retired. But at some point between then and when I'm looking at it now, Mist has also retired. It seems like he's actually binned it with a fresh set of softs. It's
no.
Oh, he has.
No.
He's
no. I was looking at Mist because I did see him go into the pits at a very late stage. I believe he was lapped, and he went to the pits and retired. So. I think he has to leave early, although it is unfortunate, only a few more laps to go. He could have tried for a fastest lap, taken it away from his other competitors, but yeah, unfortunate for Miss as well.
I see that it's more accurate, could be, but yeah, it did seem like he had lost the car at the exit of turn 3. His car, the dot on the mini-map, was just where the Romain Grosjean incident happened as well. So I just felt like he'd lost the car, getting a little too angsty on the throttle. Could be wrong though, as you said. It could be just a case of him running out of time this evening, not able to complete the end of the race. But unfortunate for him, because he would have been in a good position had people ahead started squabbling and maybe make up a few positions towards the end.
Yep, that's for sure. But then again, we don't know what the actual reason is. Unfortunate for Miss. What is even more, I don't know the exact words, I'm just gonna say it, unfortunate-er for Jinan and Wolf and Viria is that they're on much. That is very interesting. They're on much older hards here, and the safety car is going in just after. Well, Blaze has no other opportunity but to go now, because that is the line. And by the looks of it, Ripe has messed up his restart, down by 2 positions. Blaze having a pretty good restart. While keeping an eye out on Eric Griffin though. He's sending it down the inside, and oh no, this contact between him and Destroyer Drag. He does have left end plate damage here, and that is going to hinder him by quite a bit. He will have the advantage of the softs, but it might not be as much as he really wanted, as we can already see him breaking a lot later than he really wanted to, locking up and going straight on. He's making a lot of mistakes already, and that will be quite compromising to Eric Griffin, whereas Gina and Wolf Imperia especially will be quite happy with it because they have a solid shot at finishing P4 here.
Yep, absolutely. He's gotten a good start there from the safety car restart. That would be ideal for him, but now he has to look ahead. He has to see what other things, what he needs to do. What are the things he needs to do in order to capitalize on those slower drivers ahead of him? That's E-Dog just driving through the ghosted car of Wolf Imperia there, who has unfortunately disconnected from the server, not at a great time as well, considering the safety car restart. He's going to lose quite a few positions, having been in a strong position in the race. But this is Destroyer Drag right on the back of Racer. This is also quite a big tire advantage for the Aston Martin driver. He's found himself in the podium contention after, that's Aces Scoop spinning like a Beyblade in the background there. As we go back on board Destroyer Drag. No DRS yet, so he has to dump some ERS to get ahead of Racer. Racer will defend the inside line going into turn 1. He has to go the long way around, but he has got that tire advantage, a lot more grip on exit, and that is an easy move for Destroyer Drag. He executed that perfectly, might I add, and no DRS for Racer to come back at him into turn 4 either. And now Racer has to look into his mirrors once again because he sees the Ferrari of Eric Griffin in the background there on the fresh set of soft that he had from qualifying that he didn't use. So now Eric on max attack sees himself on the podium, definitely sees his name in lights. But will he be able to? Racer's been doing a fantastic job this entire race. He's defended well. He's attacked at exactly the right points. How long will he be able to hold off the charge of Eric Griffin? Only time will tell.
Indeed, but do keep in mind, he does have a left-wing end plate that is missing, although by the looks of it, he is quite confident as he is ahead of Racer going into turn 11 here. A lot of grip with those tires still, so Eric Griffin still not giving up. And do keep in mind the DRS will get enabled next lap onwards, although he will not have it up until the exit of turn 3. That the first back straight or the second straight in this circuit is where he will be getting that DRS, and he is within a second of Destroyer Track here and still getting closer despite the damage. Eric Griffin has a lot of pace, cannot unfortunately fight for P1, but has a solid contention for P2.
Yep, absolutely. This is a great battle here that's unfolding. Might just get even better for Eric Griffin now. Started P4 at the beginning of the race, now finds himself in contention for P2, potentially even P1. I mean, we've got a few laps remaining, but those softs look so fast, and the delta difference between them is also pretty mad here, as that's not an influencer trying to make a move on Vinay, or getting the move done on Vinay, and now on the back of that's Mighty Owl's ghosted blue flag car there, but I think that is Ritesh up ahead of him trying to get a move on him. And actually that's not an influencer, randomly slow, just didn't get a great exit, it seemed like, from turn 4, and he's Vinay's got the position back on him. But yeah, a little bit of squabble now for P12, 13. Still great to see everybody's raring to go even at this latter stage of the race. Up ahead, Eric Griffin, just a tenth and a half behind Destroyer Drag. He gets the move going into turn 11. Will he be able to make it stick? Destroyer Drag coming back down the inside, tries for this switchback, but Eric Griffin holds off the position well, and now he'll be on the charge. Almost 4 seconds now the gap between himself and Blaze. He'll be left to see how much he carves that gap with the 2 laps that he has available at his disposal. Surely not. Surely not. Am I thinking the same thing you're thinking? Probably not. But does Eric have a chance here? It doesn't seem like it. He's lost a little bit more time there. 4 seconds as he comes across the line. It'll be a tall ask, but what a drive from Eric Griffin. More importantly, what a drive from Destroyer Drag. Didn't really seem to be in the podium places, in contention a few laps earlier, but the safety cars worked out really well for him. That Swagger Turbo going down the inside of E-Dog to secure P6, and E-Dog will immediately be under attack from his teammate Ripe in a short period of time as well, although Ripe is carrying a penalty.
Indeed, that will be pushing him down quite a bit further down the grid, and that's the Red Bull driver. Ooh, quite squabbly on the exit there. He went deep, couldn't get the traction down correctly, and because of that, he is, of course, lost out on a lot more positions than he was expecting. And let's see, what can Red Bull driver, or rather Mamukadmi, do? A bit loose on the exit himself again, so those tires are definitely very hot. And Eric Griffin, despite the damage, again, he's pulled off a second gap to destroy a track. Won't be able to catch up to Blaze, but still an amazing feat from him nonetheless, as we are coming to the close of the penultimate lap.
Absolutely, with a lap and a half remaining, a lot of racing action there. That's ripe. And was that two Williams going wheel to wheel? It seemed like for a second there. Probably not. Could be. There's a lot of blue on there. There's another car spinning in the background there. That is Babu Kadmi losing the car coming out of turn 12 there. Not ideal for him. He loses a few more positions, and not a great weekend for Red Bull. But they'll have many more opportunities in the season to make up that gap. Up ahead though, Destroyer Drag, Racer and Eric Griffin all within DRS of each other, but surely there's not enough time for any of them to make a move. And also with the tire advantage that, you know, each of them carries over another, Eric on Destroyer, Destroyer on Racer, there's not really going to be much racing action at this point. They're just going to try to make it to the flag and make sure they finish in their respective positions. It's been a great weekend for all of them. A lot of wheel-to-wheel action. Eric Griffin especially. Great drive from him.
Amazing drive from Eric Griffin again. I can't help but emphasize that wing damage that he has. It just makes it very hard to drive these cars. And the fact that he still managed to put himself up into P2 is still a very great feat, although it might not be over yet because Destroyer Track seems to be coming back. He might be on for a P2 himself here if he manages to absolutely nail the next few corners, although by the looks of it the gap might be a little too big for Destroyer to pull off any certain moves unless Eric Griffin makes a huge mistake, as we only have about 3 more corners left in this race.
Absolutely. Let's go on board Blaze. It's been a dominant drive from the McLaren driver. He's coming down those final few corners now. There's a battle in the background though. We can't focus on Blaze just yet. It seems like Destroyer may have one last opportunity to get a move on Eric. He's right on his back. Blaze crosses the line to take P1, but more importantly, or rather a much more significant achievement for Eric Griffin after starting P4 and pretty much being down and out after a few laps. It seemed all over, but he came back for a brilliant result. Blaze as well executed the strategy perfectly, take nothing away from him. But Eric pretty much went wheel to wheel with everyone in the top 10 to secure that P2.
Yeah, but we had a very little glimpse of it, but we did see Eric going almost into the pits to defend, and we did mention earlier from the coordinators that that is not allowed, so that could be a penalty coming both for Eric Griffin as well as Destroyer, because Destroyer did follow him through.
Absolutely. So, you know, the FIA has to get involved after the race. There's no F1 race without some controversy. So, yeah, we'll have to have a look at the rule book later. The stewards will have to make a decision on that, whether Eric was in the clear or not. Yes, this could be just, you know, it could just be him defending, but the rules are the rules. They are clear, and they were amended recently to prevent what exactly Eric did there. So, yeah, as simply you did mention, yeah, that's going to be it's going to be the topic of some talk after the race for sure. But that would mean that Racer moves up into P3 if penalty does go through. But for now, the order remains the same. Blaze in P1, Eric P2, Destroyer P3, your podium sitters as Deadshot, the last driver to come across the line. This gives us a little bit of a weave, just a little bit of a gloat after a nice evening of racing. That was brilliant. That was absolutely brilliant. That was a great race.
That was an amazing starting round to this race. And yeah, well, I really don't have a lot of words to say because I'm all out of them for the amazing racing that we've seen from Blaze. Absolutely dominant performance from him, and a very good comeback from Eric Griffin, and especially Destroyer Track. A very good race for the top 3 and throughout the field indeed, because we did see battles all throughout the field for every single position that we had to fight for, especially the point scoring positions. Remember, top 15. So yeah, well, there were a few incidents between the drivers, a few of them we could not catch, but we leave that to the stewards. And what are your thoughts on this race, Etzel?
Absolutely brilliant wheel-to-wheel action throughout. I don't think we saw one lap where someone wasn't racing with someone else. A great race, a great season opener for Tier 3, and based on what I've seen this evening, Tier 3 is going to be a very, very exciting one to keep an eye out for. Very, very balanced grid. Seems like anyone can take the win at any point in time if they execute the strategy. So with that in mind, your final finishing order for the Tier 3 race this evening, the first of what is to be a great season, as we just go through these last few race director part of the protocol. Blaze crosses the line, P1, control the strategy, control the race, gets the win. Great drive there. Eric Griffin went wheel to wheel with just about everyone in the top 10, as I mentioned, secures a strong P2. But could there be some penalties for him later on? Only time will tell. Destroyer Drac, a strong podium finish as well after initially losing out some positions, and the rest of the field as they were.
Yep.
When they crossed the line. A great result. Racer in P4 as well with a great drive, I must say.
Yeah. And before we get to the podium interviews, Etzel, who would be your driver of the day?
My driver of the day. That's a difficult one. I think so many drivers put on a great performance today. It would be harsh to take it away from Blaze, but I think my driver of the day has to be Eric. I think he put on a really good show, and we have a talk to him in a second as Eric just leaves the VC there. That's hopefully I didn't say anything wrong. Let's have a talk in the meantime to Destroyer Drac, our P3 finisher today. Drac, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Hello.
Hello, Drac. How are you doing? P3 in today's race. You started P3, you ended P3, but it isn't quite as simple as that, is it?
Yeah, I had a fun race there. I had a pretty good start, but then I think the others on mediums had a better start. So they got to me, and I was in P4, and I was fighting with, I think it was Warrior, or I don't know his name, Wolf Emperor. So just entering the second DRS straight, I just clipped the rear tire on the curb, and that spun me around. So I guess one or two others had hit me as well. Thankfully, I didn't get any damage, but then I just kept my head down and just kept moving forward.
I think on the reverse strategy, especially with in your case, you had that late safety car. How much what was going through your mind when you saw those people behind you on the soft tires? Were you perplexed? Were you nervous? Were you confident?
I was a bit nervous, but I was also confident because my teammate was behind me and we were just having a chat there. And I think I knew that the softs wouldn't last when I got to know that the safety car was getting in, which was pretty sudden. You know, it's EA. So I didn't expect the safety car to go in that lap. So I thought the soft runners would lose their tire by the end of the last or the second lap. So I thought at least if not even P2 or P3, I will somehow be in P4 or P3. So I thought, okay, let's see what I can do. Yeah.
Absolutely. Great job from you, P3 today, and hopefully a good start in this season's championship. Let's move now to Eric Griffin. P2 finisher today for Ferrari. Eric, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Eric, it seemed like you fought with just about everybody. You seemed like you just wanted to go wheel to wheel, had a good time. There's a lot of great battles from you there. What are your thoughts?
Hopefully you all guys all thought it was clean and not too dirty. Was any of it dirty? I don't think so.
No, it was all beautiful. It was beautifully executed. Your race today was beautifully balanced.
Yeah, so I mean, the first stint, I think I used too much ERS trying to get out of the DRS of Blaze and made a mistake, and he was right back on my tail. So then it was just into like saving and trying to do what I could, because I thought once I made that mistake and he was back in my DRS and I had no ERS, then I was like, okay, P2 is probably the best I could get, because on the reverse strat it's pretty hard to fight mediums versus hards. And then luckily I think I was right behind Blaze and Racer, I think, and both of them had a coming together and I gained a position there. So then I knew my main same tire runner was out of the picture. So I was able to take it a little chill. The safety car kind of did help. I saved a brand new set of softs for the race. I mean, not out of compulsion. I kind of crashed out in quali, but and at the safety car restart, I was overtaking one Aston Martin, and the Aston Martin in front of him was trying to go for the cutback, and I kind of got wing damage. So the entire lap after the safety car was driven on wing damage. So I'm pretty happy with P2.
Yeah, I think considering all things considered, every cloud does have a silver lining after quali for you. So congratulations on P2. Well summed up there, your race. Simply, why don't you talk to our race winner for today? I think Simply is occupied right now. So let's quickly have a talk to Blaze. Started on the hard tires. Was that an interesting strategy call from your side, going on the reverse strategy? Because you managed it well.
Definitely thought that in the first few laps I would be slow because of hards, but there was an advantage for mediums also, and I didn't expected that safety car and didn't expected that return also. It was instantly, so it caught me a bit off guard, but yeah.
Yeah, well managed from you there. After the first stint, it did seem like a pretty quiet race for you. You got the overcut done. You came out quite far ahead of everyone else, and you were in the optimum tire. So it just seemed a case of managing the situation. Did the safety car have any kind of influence on that? What were you thinking at that point in time?
That point, I thought that it was easy victory, but after seeing that Eric has gone on softs, it got me a bit worried. But due to wing damage, I got the podium.
Well, congratulations once again. You are race winner for the inaugural race of season 10 and also the first race of the season for Tier 3. You go into the next round in a pretty strong position for yourself and also for the McLaren team. So congratulations from our side on your victory today. And that's about it. Simply, you join us at a good time. What are your closing thoughts for today's race?
Closing thoughts for me would be for sure the fact that considering we had Bahrain, it was, very interesting race, very very fun to watch battles throughout the field. The season's quite long, so I'm expecting more of such battles between the lead as well as every other position on track throughout the season. Everyone will be in contention for whatever they will be fighting for, and that just makes racing even better considering they're all very very close on pace. So that will be something to look out for throughout the season.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Tier 3 looks very, very perfectly balanced. That's it from us today for this evening. Thank you very much for tuning in. As always, you can find all our socials on your screen, as also in the link in the description to follow to our Discord server. Get involved with the conversation, get involved with the sim racing. We have more action for you coming this weekend. We have Tier 2 in the afternoon tomorrow, roundabouts 2:15 p.m. And we also have, of course, Tier 1, the premier event in IRC's lineup, the fastest drivers in India taking to the track tomorrow in Season 10 at 8 p.m. So hopefully looking forward to seeing you there once again. This is Aidsel, Simply, and SSJ signing off this evening from IRC. Take care and good night.
Good night.
Good night.